Today we're going to be speaking with Shannon Rust, and Shannon is a dressage rider, a saddle fitter, and the owner of Rust Equestrian, and also the co-owner of HQ Sport Horses. And so welcome, Shannon. Thank you for talking to us today. We're excited to hear about all the things that you do. So to get started, we always kind of ask you how you got started in horses. What kind of brought you to that place with horses?
You know, it's interesting. Everybody asks me that. And I didn't come from, an equestrian family. We didn't own a farm. I did grow up in West Virginia, so we lived in the country. But when my mom would go to work, she had a friend who ran the riding stables at Snowshoe where she worked. And so I would go there and kind of, get pony rides and get lessons and help out in the barn. And then I was just hooked, and somebody ended up giving us a free pony that we boarded across the street for. I think our board was $35 a month.
Good deal.
He was a little Appaloosa pony cross of some sort.
How cute.
It just kind of went from there. I mean, we took that little horse to all of the shows, and then we ended up getting, another horse and another horse and another horse. And I eventually interned with an AQHA trainer and got a hunter saddle horse when I was in high school. Started showing hunter saddle, did some hunter jumper stuff, and then ended up going to college for horses. So it's just kind of like progressed over the years.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to school, and did you ride on the team?
I did. I went to Virginia Intermont College, which is now Emory and Henry.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, in Bristol.
Awesome. And then did you eventually just kind of end up into was dressage like your choice, or are you still like, do you like the hunter jumper, or what do you like? Yeah. What do you like to do now?
Oh my gosh. So after I graduated college, I ended up moving to Lake Tahoe, California, and was sort of keeping my horse on the East Coast, kind of going back and forth, ended up selling my last horse that I had. So I was horseless for like 7 or 8 years. And then I moved to Hawaii and literally got married in Hawaii. It was lovely.
Nice.
Yeah. I got married in Hawaii. And then a month later, I told my husband, I said, oh my gosh, I really want to have a horse again. And he's like, okay. And then 2 months later, we had a horse on a boat to Hawaii.
Are you serious? Oh my goodness. Think of that.
That's a keeper. Yeah. That's what I say.
Oh, that had to be a big thing to get a horse from there to you. Wow. Okay.
It was at the time. Now they have a lot of flights that go from, LAX to Oahu.
Yeah.
But the only farm that there was to board at, the trainer there was primarily dressage, and so I just started riding dressage. But growing up, I avoided dressage, avoided it. I loved the hunter jumper stuff, but
all that flat work is boring.
Yeah, and there's lots of sitting trot, and everybody was so serious, and so. And then I moved back to Virginia during COVID, and the barn that I was at, the trainer that they had was primarily dressage, and so it just kind of went from there.
I'm still back on. I want to be in Hawaii and have you guys send me a horse. I think that'd be fun.
How'd you end up first of all, how'd you end up in California, and then how'd you end up in Hawaii from there?
So California so I dated a guy that was on the U.S. snowboarding team at the time.
Oh, wow.
And, we went to all these cool places, and we went to Lake Tahoe for the skiing and snowboarding there. And then I started working for a hospitality company in marketing who moved me to Hawaii, and I was in Hawaii for 6 years.
Wow. That's cool. You have cool work experience.
I do. I've worked in some really, really cool places, and Hawaii is one of those places that I miss every single day.
But you are now in
Virginia.
Oh, and it's gorgeous in Virginia, too.
Yes.
It's beautiful horse country also.
Beautiful.
Yes, it is.
And it's fall now, so the weather is nice, and we're going to have the fall leaves.
Yeah, right.
We've got a couple weeks of summer.
Yeah, we hope. We hope. So you established a business there then, or did you establish your business at that time? The Rust Equestrian boutique, actually, and I want to know more about that. But when you went to Virginia, what happened from there then?
Yeah, so we came here from Hawaii in 2020, and then in 2021 in June, we bought some raw acreage. We bought almost 40 acres of raw acreage.
Wow.
And then we found out how long it was going to take to develop that into what I wanted and how expensive it was going to be.
Yeah.
And so we were, kind of looking on Zillow and stuff like that. And we randomly found our farm, and we put in an offer like the very next day. So, so we bought our farm in 2021, and it was kind of always been my goal to own my own horse farm. And, it's every little girl's dream, right? To have their own farm. And so 2021, we moved in, and this is where we've been ever since.
Wow. That's
awesome.
Nice. Now, was the barn established in there, or did you need to build, or, how did that process go for you?
Yeah, no, the barn was here. And it was, they did a really good job on the amenities and stuff like that, but it wasn't really set up for sport horses. They had done some breeding and stuff. So the pastures were gigantic, and we still have a couple of those, but, we've been slowly adding on to it and sort of making it what we want it to be and making it a little more convenient. But the barn and the home were here already.
Nice. That's nice. So how many horses are on the farm, and tell me about that, and tell me a little bit about like what you do there with your, with the horses and training and that type of thing.
Yeah. So we have 8.5 horses. We have a little pony. We have him on site too. So we have 8 horses here. A little over half of them are mine. And then I do board a couple. The original goal wasn't to have boarders, but the trainer that I was working with at the time had a client, and we've kind of just, acquired a couple boarders along the way who've been with me for several years, and they're lovely. So a little bit of both.
Okay. And now you also say too that your Rust Equestrian is also a boutique dressage barn, or could you tell us a little bit about that then?
Yeah, it's just a smaller dressage barn. So we really focus on primarily dressage, and kind of catering to the individual needs of the horses and riders here.
Nice.
So, I never wanted to have like a gigantic facility, but I really wanted it to be small and intimate, a lot of attention to detail. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's why we kind of call like a boutique private farm.
How nice. That's awesome.
Do you have the trainer that you work with then train out of your facility?
I don't. It seems like everybody wants to migrate to Florida. So I cannot do Florida in the summertime, but
me either.
No.
We actually there is a very large need for dressage trainers in my area. There are not a lot of trainers close to us. So, we do some virtual things, we do some clinics, we haul, here and there. Sometimes in the wintertime, we will, take the horses, up north to a trainer for a month or two where there's an indoor. So, we're very resourceful.
That's wonderful. And now through this then, how did you get into your saddle fitter as well then? How did you get into that then? How did that all come about?
Yeah, so actually, I had reached out to the owner of N2 a couple of years ago when I was moving here to Virginia, and I joke with her about this, but she kind of scared me because it's so much travel and the region is so large, and I was like, okay, I've traveled my whole career, I'm just not I'm not ready to do this yet. And then she and I linked up when I was in Florida, not last year, but the year before. And she was actually fitting my young horse for a saddle. We had tried several different things, and, we kind of got to talking, and it went from there. I tell her she got me when I was in Florida.
Oh, okay. And so now, so it just was something that you felt like you were comfortable with it, you liked it, and then you decided to take that on. And what, tell me about how what's your method of saddle fitting? I mean, what is the most important thing that you need to do, or how to assess the horse or whatever, or the saddle? How does that work?
There's a lot of training that goes into saddle fitting, right? And there's, anatomy and musculature and really being a rider is important, and sort of knowing, what goes on up there, how the horse feels, the different movements and what it's supposed to feel like. But I think the hardest part is just listening to the horse and rider. So I think and I don't want to say easy, because it's not, and most horses aren't symmetrical, and most horses aren't straight. So I don't want to say it's easy to fit a saddle, but to really make everybody comfortable, the rider comfortable, the horse comfortable, for long term, I think is a little challenging, and riders, who might not be trainers or might not be familiar. It's a frustrating endeavor for some people and some horses, and so just kind of being understanding and working through that with them it's very rewarding, I think, in the end, when you know that you walk away and everybody's comfortable, and you create these relationships with people. You meet the most amazing people.
I bet.
See them every 3 or 4 months. It's just been really, really neat. And I think for somebody like me who hasn't been who kind of was in the horse industry really heavily and then left and then came back, it's been really nice to have those connections and meet those people.
This podcast is brought to you by Ram Fence and Stalls, the one-stop shop for your horse farm. Ram is family-owned and operated and been in business for over 30 years. We welcome you to call in and speak with an expert about your next project today at 866-653-8984. Again, that's 866-653-8984.
Well, now tell me, if I wanted to have a saddle fitted to my horse, or if Jade wanted to have a saddle fitted to her horse, do you come to us? Do we take our horse to you? How does that work?
I will come to you. So I have, the full setup and everything. I do carry N2 and I work with N2, but if I go to a barn and they have other saddles that are something in my wheelhouse and something that I'm able to adjust, I will certainly fit them. As long as if they're a new saddle and it might void their warranty with the brand that they purchased it from or something like that, I kind of steer clear of that and say, hey, I don't want you to void your warranty ever on anything. But yeah, certainly I'm happy to help anybody that has a saddle that I'm able to adjust.
Nice. So how do you go about doing that? You have different types of, do you go and look at the horse, measure? And I have no clue because I've never had a saddle fit. Have you?
I used to, the barn that I worked in Minnesota had a bunch of, when I say, two people that worked for county saddlery there. So I'm familiar with the process,
the method,
so to speak. It's interesting though, because I ride Western, and I've only ever learned anything about fitting English saddles.
Okay.
My best friend is a Western rider, and she has just gone through the process of saddle fitting Western saddles, and there are not a lot of people that specialize in that. In theory, it's the same, but
yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
it's interesting. I think it's the difference in mentality in some of it, like discipline wise and stuff. And I feel like a lot of Western barns, it's more so you fit the saddle to you, and then that saddle fits every horse. Whereas some of the, jumper barns and stuff like that, it's more so the saddle fits the horse, and you figure it out. If it doesn't really fit you, that great.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. Certainly.
So do you have saddles that a person sits on to see how they feel, and then sit it on the horse to see how it sets on the horse? Or do you look at the horse and size the horse up and say, I think this would be a great fit? Try these saddles. Is that the best way? Or how do you, is that what someone would expect? And how long does that take maybe to try to get through that process?
A little of both. I always like to hear what's going on with them first. What are they riding in? What do they like or think they like? And what do they not like? What are they looking to accomplish? If they just want a brand new saddle, if they want to try a new brand, if they're uncomfortable in a certain way, or if their horse is uncomfortable. And so then, after that, in my head, I'll think, okay, these are the models that could potentially work for this client. And then we'll take a look at their horse, static in the cross ties. We'll take a look and see, check out the musculature, the anatomy of the horse. And, most horses aren't symmetric, just like people. So we'll take a look at all of that, standing behind them, having them walk, having them move, touching them, measuring them. And then we will try the saddles on, make sure those saddles fit that horse properly. And then we'll have the rider sit in them, and we'll sort of do the same thing, ride in them, walk in them. And then we'll say, hey, this is a saddle that we can adjust to fit both of you. then you'll try it again. So it's quite the process. If this is the first time trying a new saddle, it can take 3 or 4 hours, depending on the horse and rider. Sometimes we have to go back a second time because it's a young horse or a horse that's just like, I'm not doing this all day with you. So you really have to just listen to the client and the horse.
Do you feel like then the horse has much better movement, and do you feel that people see that fairly quick when they get the saddle that fits the horse right? Or would you give anybody any advice that's listening on, how to choose a little bit? Like, I know there are narrow-shouldered horses and broad-shouldered horses and things like that. Is there anything that you would tell a person to kind of look for if they don't have a saddle fitter, or what would be, good to think about with their horses? You don't want to pinch them, of course, or, it has to be comfortable for the rider too.
I kind of steer clear from telling people this is what you should ask for, this is what you should look for, without talking or without seeing them or seeing their horse or really talking to them. I know there's a lot of terminology that's used, and that may or may not apply to certain brands or certain horses, or sometimes people will think their horse is, has high withers, or they'll use certain terminology for that, but it might not, or the muscles surrounding that are not what they think they are. So my best advice is to just ask a lot of questions. Ask the saddle fitters lots of questions, and then ask other people, whether it's into or a different company or something like that. Ask around word of mouth. How is your saddle fitter? How often do they come? Are your horses happy? How long have you been riding in these saddles? Have you been able to solve problems? Those kind of things.
Have you ever had a person that you've worked with that you knew when they came and you saw the saddle and you were like, and then you were able to help, and they were like, ooh, look at this. They could see the difference in it right away. And it has to make you feel good if that's the case. Like, you were able to help both of them, I'm sure.
Oh gosh. Yeah. It's definitely very rewarding when you can make people happy, and not just for that moment that you're there. That I want them to message me 2 months later or a month later and say, oh my gosh, you can't pry me out of the saddle. My horse and I still love it. So, and I try not to, we see things and we're like, sometimes you want to cringe, but you can't do that, because there are crazy occasions where people really like what they like, or they think their horse is happy in that. And, you really just have to be aware of the situation.
Yeah, well, and I think especially with some of the things that, in my opinion, are newer developments in the horse industry, the way that we care and keep horses is evolving every single day, and we're just getting better at it. In my opinion, you don't know what you don't know and stuff. And when I first started working at the barn in Minnesota that had saddle fitters and stuff, truly never thought about saddle fit until I met them. It was just not something that I ever really thought of. I was like, oh, you get a saddle, you can get it around the, I get the right size girth, it goes on the horse, it's not falling off, looks like it's good. Didn't think about it until I was exposed to it, and then I was like, oh, well, now I know, I guess. Whoops. I definitely rode in some things that I definitely shouldn't have rode in, but you don't know until someone tells you in a nice way, hopefully, which it seems like you are emphasizing in that then is the nice way of it's a teaching thing. It's not necessarily just a selling thing.
Yeah, and I think, sometimes fitters who work with a specific brand kind of get a bad reputation, or a reputation as a salesperson. And, we are selling a certain brand and representing a certain brand. But I think at the end of the day, you just need to find somebody who really has the best interest of the horse in mind. I have left people before where we didn't find something that worked for them, and we didn't have the perfect, solution for them. And I think that's okay. Obviously we want their horse to be happy, and we try to steer them in the right direction, or say, here's where I think that you should go next, or, your horse, you should take it a step further somewhere else. But yeah, I think when I was younger, we didn't fit anything. I don't think I ever had a saddle fitted when I was, a teenager. But you're right, it is evolving. I think people are just becoming more aware and more cognizant of kind of how we're caring for and treating our horses.
Definitely. Is there anything that, again, maybe just that you would want to tell somebody or advise them when they're looking for a saddle to kind of look for? I mean, maybe they're new, or maybe they've had a horse, but now it's time to get the new saddle. Is there anything that you would say, hey, look for this, this, or this in a saddle for your horse?
I think that's a hard question.
Okay.
I would
There's so many
say,
factors.
Sure.
I would say steer clear of some of the terminology that's used,
Okay.
like narrow twist or wide twist or things like that,
Okay.
and really find somebody who you can ask a lot
Okay.
of questions. Have somebody out to evaluate your horse that maybe
There you go.
you say, hey, I am not buying a saddle today. I have no intention of buying a saddle. Evaluate what I have, or what do you think my options are? But again, it really depends, because different brands have different brands do things a little bit differently. And I would also say, and this is just my opinion,
Sure.
but this is my only opinion I'll give you.
Well, we
It's
want to
just
know.
get-
We want to know. Yeah.
Get something adjustable. Like there are, and this is just for somebody who, if you have $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 to shell out on new saddles, or have that fitter out to adjust those saddles if they come frequently, there are some great saddles out there. But if you get something adjustable, classic, with a nice wooden tree, wool flocking that many different fitters can work on, you will probably have your saddle
Nice.
fit better longer.
Nice. Very nice. I think those are good words. That's good. Okay. Well, is there anything else that we didn't discuss that you'd like to talk about either your farm or your saddle fitting
Well,
at
we
all
haven't
right now,
touched
Jen?
on HQ performance
Oh,
horses
yeah,
either.
please,
I'd love
yes,
to
let's get into that.
hear
I'm so
about
sorry.
that
Please.
too.
Yeah,
You do a
absolutely.
lot, so we gotta hit
Please
it all.
tell us. Yeah, thank
Gosh.
you. Thank you.
I do a lot of things. So HQ is a business that I started with somebody who's really awesome. She's my partner in the business, and we have sales horses. So we will help you find whatever you're looking for. We import a lot of horses, so we kind of know what to look for and have good connections over there. Can walk you through the process. I know. When I've imported a horse, or when I started importing horses, there's a lot of, that's scary, right? You're like, this is a
Yes.
lot of money, and there are a lot of
yes.
hoops to jump through, and,
Yes.
vettings and trials and this and that. And so we're kind of just there to help. We love the search. We love buying the horses. We love looking at the
Oh, I
horses. We love
bet.
knowing, hey, this client wants this, or, we know this horse will be great in a year. And so, yeah, it's just something that horses are expensive. And so we've partnered on it. And I think she has a really great skill set. She's a lovely trainer and rider. And she just is, she's a great partner. And so, yeah, so we have some sales horses, and
Nice.
that's kind of what we do at HQ.
Wow, that's a lot. You have a lot going on. That's an awfully lot. Wow.
So with your sales horses, are you doing like discipline specific or breed specific?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What type of horses are you importing? Because my sister is an eventer, and she imported an Irish sport horse. So I have like an interest in that. And like, what types of horses are you looking for when you're importing?
Well, it really depends, anything from some people from young horses, right? Just for price range. People want really sane, talented young horses, either amateur friendly or something that's maybe a little fancier, for a professional, or a horse that's more developed, right? A horse that's, fourth level FEI. And, some of those you really just have to make sure that you go through the proper channels to make sure, either they need X maintenance, or they're, this is what's going on with them. This is their history. They're usually older horses. And so just a little bit more research needs to be done with those horses. But yeah.
Once the process gets started, they've chosen the horse. How long does it usually take then for that, Shannon? Like, how long could a person anticipate, getting the horse over? And there has to be probably quarantine, things like that. How long does that take?
I mean, you can have a horse in a couple weeks. It's pretty quick. As soon as you,
it's fast.
If you have the money, you pay for the horse. Obviously, you've done your vetting, you've done all that. You pay for the horse.
Yeah.
The next flight is, they have very frequent flights. So that, let's say the next flight is at this point Monday, and then they would fly to JFK. They'd spend a couple days there. Like geldings don't have to spend very long. And then you have transport to wherever they're going next.
Oh, wow. That would be fun. Let's get one.
Okay.
Exactly. We will be talking to you. Yeah, that would be fun.
There we go.
Okay. Well, what we're going to do now is we're going to take a little short break. And when we get back, we'll enter our next segment called Canter Banter.
Do you have horses and live the equestrian lifestyle? Be sure to check out our blog at yourhorsefarm.com. Yourhorsefarm.com is a great equine online resource. So be sure to share with all the horse lovers in your life. And remember, laugh much and ride often.
Okay, we're back, and now we're into Canter Banter with Shannon. And Shannon, is there a little story that you'd like to leave us with that maybe we could all relate to?
Gosh, I didn't have this prepared.
That's
but
okay.
The first thing that comes to mind is that, so when I bought this farm, we didn't have an arena, and we had, been waiting months for our arena to get finished. We had just finished my arena, and it wasn't it wasn't a half an hour. And I pulled my horse out, who hadn't been in an arena in months. We'd just been riding in the grass. I pull him out. It's January, by the way.
Oh.
And I go in the arena. My husband's filming, first day on the arena. And my horse, who is a saint, bucks me off in the middle of the new arena.
Oh, no.
And the UPS man is driving down the driveway and sees the whole thing happen. And it's a big ordeal. And all I wanted to do was just document riding in my new riding arena.
That's how you christened your new indoor. Is that right? Oh, my goodness.
You got it. You got the first fall out of the way within seconds.
And then
so
you
there
were
we go.
done. Oh, you poor thing.
Well, and so one of my boarders, the next day, she was like, "Oh, I see where you fell. There was like a big..."
Like I said, pushed out, but exactly. Oh, bless your heart. Now, were you okay though? We want to be sure you were okay.
Oh yeah. And my horse kind of stood there like, what just happened? Because he never does things like that.
He's a good boy generally.
Sometimes they surprise themselves, don't they? They kind of go, "Whoa, where'd that come from?" So, and you too.
Yeah, certainly. Exactly. I was like, what just happened?
Well, Shannon, thank you so much for being with us today. It's a pleasure to speak to you. And, anybody in the area or that would like to contact Shannon, again, it's Rust Equestrian and Sport horses.
Yeah.
And we just thank you so much for spending time today to talk. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed our podcast and encourage you to share with all of your equestrian family and friends. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform as well as our YouTube channel and stay up to date on all of our shows. Do you have a topic to discuss or a guest recommendation for our hosts? Email us at podcast@ramfence.com.